So for those of you who don't know, and I can't imagine that anybody doesn't know, we're clearly talking about metadata since this is called Metadata Mondays.
Woo.
There's been a lot of chatter about it on our website, in our newsletter. Metadata is important. And so to kind of collate that into to kind of collate that into like a chunk that you can just get a bit of, we are going to discuss some metadata things. But first, let's start out with an introduction. So I am joined today with Sarah. Sarah, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Surely.
Surely. That's the best part about my name. I make everything an adjective.
Yes. Thanks y'all so much for joining. This is great to see so many people already here. I'm Sarah High. I work at IngramSpark with Ingram Book Group. And I work specifically on e-commerce, which means online sales. So Amazon, bookshop.org, iPage, Edelweiss. I work across all of those platforms. And I love metadata. I'm very passionate about it. And I think everyone should be passionate about metadata, whether or not you have published your book yet or you work in the industry or not. It is the lifeblood of your book. And I can't wait to talk to you about it, Leigh. And before I joined Ingram last December, just for some background, I worked at bookshop.org. So I know quite a bit about online sales and how to make sure your book is set up for success online. So really looking forward to giving y'all some tips and tricks today.
Awesome. Quick thing about me, my name is Leigh Pierce. Hello, you may have seen me with Tea with Leigh. I've also done some interviews regarding different things about Spark. I have been with the company for 6.5 years, so I know quite a bit. I am now a key account sales manager. And so when it comes to sales, I am all about helping optimize and get sales up. And that's why we're talking about metadata, because the best thing you can do to get your book selling is to make sure that your metadata is optimized.
Definitely.
So, Sarah, let's start out talking about what metadata is. Just for those who don't know.
Yeah, and I'm just going to look off to the side for my notes. Just know that that's where I'm looking, y'all, even though I wish I was looking right at you the whole time. But because it's Monday afternoon, I need my notes in front of me. So basically, if you're not familiar, metadata, like I just said, is really the lifeblood of your book. It includes the ISBN, your title, your author bio, bisects, keywords, some really fun stuff that is integral to your metadata that we're going to talk about. But basically, it is everything that makes your book what it is, especially online. So the things that help your book get discoverable to booksellers, librarians, websites, making sure you have metadata and good metadata at that is how you will sell your book online. So really excited to talk about it. Is there anything I missed there, Leigh?
I would just say anything that describes your book, anything that's going on to that. When you set up your title with IngramSpark, all those fields that you have to fill out before you submit your files, that's all metadata. And it is super important to have all of that filled out, not only just to have something in there, but also to make sure that it's relevant to your book. Because the object of metadata is discoverability. And if a customer is looking for your book and they type in a word or something, they don't know what book they want. They just want something about that. You want to make sure that your readers are going to find your book. So
totally. Absolutely.
That's the only thing I would add there. So Sarah, you mentioned make sure you use good metadata. Can you talk to us a little bit about what's good metadata or what's bad metadata? What does that mean?
Certainly, Leigh. Metadata can be good or bad. Simply in just kind of basics terms, bad metadata is not enough or very generic metadata. So I work across IngramSpark titles looking at metadata, and I would consider bad metadata something like 1 BISAC versus 3, or generic BISAC versus a specific genre of what your book is or where it falls.
Avoid general at all costs.
No general, please. No general. Because if you think about, marketing a book, as fiction in general, how is that going to be discovered to anybody? You need to make sure you really try to break it down into fiction, environmental adventure, or fiction, romance, something, right? So there's a bunch of subcategories for BISACs, and the IngramSpark platform makes that part really easy, so you can really winnow down what exactly you need your BISACs to look like specifically. And we'll touch base on that again, but just to kind of circle back, good metadata is the opposite of bad, in that it is specific, it is super
robust.
There's a lot of it, right? Not just filler text, but like keyword rich annotations. If you have pull quotes, making sure you put that in your description. I love when I see authors do that. Really, and we'll talk about this at the end too, but if you look at a book or a publisher or author that you really admire, trying to see what they do and emulate that, how did they get their book discovered? Is it because they had, a generic title and metadata? No, it's because they really, maybe with the help of a publishing house or maybe not, they really winnowed down the way that they marketed their book online. And the great thing about IngramSpark, among many things, is that we are so passionate about metadata and we want it to be good. And we can really help you make it as specific as possible with services like title discovery. We have a knowledge base. We'll talk a little bit more about title discovery in a session I'm doing tomorrow with Denise on Instagram Live, so that's great. But basically, good metadata is just what it sounds like. It's really specific, robust, rich terms, description, thema, we'll talk about that, subject codes, regional codes. Just the more that you can really label your book online, the better it can get. I think that's that's everything I wanted to cover on good and bad.
So the TLDR is metadata is all the information that is relevant to your book.
Mm-hmm.
And having good metadata means it's specific, it is robust, whatever is applicable to your book, put it in there.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And making sure when you're doing your title setup through IngramSpark that you fill out everything you can. Try not to leave anything blank. That's really what's going to get your metadata from bad to good at the minimum, is just making sure you fill out the fields, right?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because something I wanted to make sure we told everybody who joined us here. There are those little grayed out boxes areas that's like, click here for more options. Click those every single time.
Click those.
That's the only way you're going to find thema, and that's important.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that in just a minute. But that's how you find all the other options that are going to help enhance your metadata. We made them not obvious in the beginning because it's kind of overwhelming. There's a lot of places and a lot of things to fill out for metadata.
Right.
And we didn't want that to deter anybody from submitting a book to us, especially if you didn't really want it to be in distribution. But the honest truth is, when you are filling out your title setup, go through everything, add everything if it's relevant. If it's not relevant to your book, don't add it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you've already submitted a title and you want to go back and put all of those things in, just click into the title. And then on that information page that first pops up, you'll see blank areas with little pencils. You can go fill in your metadata after the fact. It's not too late.
It's never too late. I love that you just said that, Leigh, because something I really wanted to make sure everyone knows about metadata is it's a living, breathing thing. You can change it at any time. You can add to it at any time. You can edit it. You can make it specific to the year or what's going on in the world. So like we have an election coming up. If you have a book, a nonfiction book in particular, about voting and the history of voting in the United States or democracy, you can add things like 2024 election or, election this year, things like that you can really make your title change and get more discoverable with timely things that are happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So Real quick, I think this is a great little moment for us to segue into public domain metadata.
Mm.
And let's talk about public domain with IngramSpark, because I think there are some people that are interested in that.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So with IngramSpark, you can publish anything you'd like outside of copyright infringement or, content that we deem not able to be sold. But you can make sure that you can try to publish public domain works. Why would you want to do that? I would say you would want to publish a public domain work. And when I say that, I mean anything in Project Gutenberg, which is like Pride and Prejudice or Emma or Wuthering Heights or Frankenstein. So these classics that have been in circulation and publication for so long that they've entered the public domain, and anyone is able to access them at any time. I would say general rule of thumb is not to publish a public domain work unless you have something very specific and interesting that you've added to it, whether that is a scholarly interview that you've done at the intro or outro of the book, or illustrations that you've added. Something that really makes that very common public domain work interesting is really the only time, I think you'd agree with me there, Leigh, that we would say you should publish a public domain work through IngramSpark.
Yeah. Because if you think there are so many editions already out there, getting yours visible is difficult. So unless you've added something really special to it, probably not a good idea to do.
Exactly. And it's a highly competitive field, right? Because it's so available. So really make sure that it's something unique if you're doing a public domain publication, right? I'm glad we covered that because we do see public domain submissions with IngramSpark. So not an uncommon thing for us to see.
Okay. And specifically when we talk about, since this is about metadata, is there anything you want to add about public domain metadata?
Yeah, I mean, everything that public domain metadata is found very easily online. It's going to be the same keywords for the most part, very similar annotations for the most part, right? So again, it is a very crowded field already with metadata and the content itself. So really, again, unless it's something like the illustrated guide or the illustrated Frankenstein that you hand drew, you can put those keywords in your public domain metadata to say things like Frankenstein illustrated. But again, we don't see a ton of illustrated public domain content. So let's just try to keep in mind it's a very crowded field, very competitive. Most of the metadata for public domain work is already available online. So I would really think long and hard before I do that.
Okay. So then let's bring it back because we've dropped a couple of things that we said we were going to talk about later, and it's later.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about BISAC and thema codes.
Yes.
And I just want to preface this by saying to everybody, BISAC to North America is thema to the rest of the world. And so if you think I've got to have really good BISAC, I've definitely got to have a BISAC, you definitely got to have a thema if you want to sell globally.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk
and
about that.
Definitely. I mean, I just love the idea of thinking globally about marketing your book and thinking globally about your metadata, specifically, like you just said, Leigh, with your BISAC. So let's say, and just for clarity, BISAC stands for Book Industry Standards and Communication Codes. So that's, again, like fiction / I really wish I had a good description here. Actually, I have some in front of me. So this isn't fiction, but it's this is a nonfiction BISAC, social science / technological studies, or computer / artificial intelligence. So again, really specific, really trying to steer away from nonfiction general or fiction general. There's really no way. That's a needle in a haystack situation in the in the online world. So really try to make sure that you make your BISACs or your the codes that label what your book is about really generally in book industry standards, making sure that's really specific. And again, we have great tools on the IngramSpark platform that can help with that. And I love that you touched on thema and how it's global. Let's talk about thema.
Well, before we transition to that real quick, I just wanted to add, when it comes to your BISAC, and your thema too, think of it this way. There are millions of books published this year, last year, hundreds of years, So all of these books in the marketplace, and your goal is to make it as easy as possible for a reader to find your book.
Yep.
So if you classify it as fiction general, yes, it's a fiction book. It could be applied for anybody who looks up the word fiction. You want them to be able to find your book. That thinking is not bad. It's not wrong. It's just not as helpful as it could be. So, if you're writing a vampire romance, I read romance. You're going to get a lot of that from me today, okay? If you've written a vampire romance, you definitely are going to find your audience a lot better if you classify that as a paranormal romance than fiction general.
Exactly.
Or even fiction romance. So the more specific you can be that makes sense with your book, the better.
Absolutely.
And that
goes
for thema as well. So let's segue and talk about how thema is a little bit different than BISAC.
Yeah. So as you touched on, thema is global. It's what the book industry on a global scale uses to identify books online. So I love thema. I think more people should use it. I think something that I get kind of saddened by a little bit is that when I'm working on metadata of titles, sometimes I don't see thema. It's not something that should be scary. Metadata is not scary at all. It's beautiful, living, breathing, and thema is
fair. It's not required on our site, though it should be, and it will be at one point.
Yeah, I think it should be required too. But thema is so special, like you said, Leigh, because it's the global way in which you make your book marketable. So thema includes things like regional subjects, it includes thema subjects and thema qualifiers, right? So making sure you have three thema subjects and 3 thema qualifiers, just like you have 3 BISACs at least, hopefully. These are really going to help make your book discoverable on a global scale. So for example, looking at a title I worked, some very, very specific thema subject codes I selected were artificial intelligence, social forecasting, future studies, medicine, educational equipment and technology. So again, really niche, requires maybe a little bit of research or maybe a little bit of clicking, but helpful for search engine optimization on a global scale, helpful for discoverability globally.
And something to know for everybody here, the thema codes are not exactly the same as BISAC, so you may need to do a little bit of digging, but I love how our site has the ability for you to search in both BISAC and thema. So if you know that your book has a certain keyword that you would want to include in those, you can search for that word and it'll narrow everything down. Make sure that you click the little plus marks beside each one to see if there's something else underneath of it. That way you can get the most drilled down version, subject thema code.
Yep.
So keep that in mind.
Exactly. Yeah, I love thema. I wish everyone would love thema as much as I did, but I think we're getting there, Leigh, and I think we're going to get there.
Awareness is the first step.
Is the first step, exactly. We should, if you agree, I'd love to segue into my favorite bit of metadata, which is keywords.
Yes, please talk to us about keywords, because I know that it's kind of unclear sometimes. What should we put in keywords? How many? So let's talk about that.
Totally. So keywords are Again, kind of self-evident sounding. They are words that help describe what your book is. They're going to help with your search engine optimization, like I said. So let's say I have this artificial intelligence book about where I think AI is going. You would want to have keywords, obviously, like artificial intelligence, AI, but maybe you could also do AI 2024, so making it very specific to the year. Artificial intelligence in, 2020s, making it specific to our decade. So really making sure that your keywords, like your bisects and your thema, are very specific. I also like to really encourage authors to max out the level of keywords they have. Of course, quality is better than quantity, but you just wrote a book or you're helping publish a book. You probably have a lot to say about the book, so make sure that you're using as many keywords as possible, rich, specific keywords, and as many as possible to make sure that that book gets discovered online, because like you said earlier, Leigh, these are the things that are going to help with search results. So let's say someone's looking for a vampire romance. If you put vampire in your keywords, it's going to make it even more specific and helpful to be discovered online.
But don't just limit it to that. Think about words and phrases that are related to those that you that your authors, or not authors, your readers are going to want to look for.
Yeah, like books about vampires, romance about vampires, modern vampire love story.
Grumpy Sunshine. I'm all about the Grumpy Sunshine.
Grumpy Sunshine, I love that one too. It's become such a subgenre too. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm just looking at the time. We have about 7 minutes left. Ooh. And I just wanted to also circle on, kind of tie up the keywords in a bow. The IngramSpark platform will tell you when you've maxed out your keywords. So it'll say you've reached your character limit. So just play with the amount that you have. And again, I would try to have as many as you can to really cover all of your bases for thinking about what people are searching when they're looking for your book.
And speaking about count, just so everybody knows, the IngramSpark platform only allows you to have 3 bisects. You can't have any more than that. I know that Sarah has said at least 3. Other platforms allow it, but ours just 3. I do not know if that's capped at 3 for thema as well. So somebody try it and tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think it's just 3. You can have more themas than that, which is why I think thema is kind of the direction we should be moving globally. But I'm so glad, Leigh, you pointed out 3 bisects, 3 bisects, 3 bisects, 3 bisects. Please just have 3 bisects, not 1, not 2, but 3.
Yes. Okay. So another bit of metadata that people may not know is metadata is pricing. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Totally. So I'm sure, Leigh, you have a lot more to say about pricing than I do, but whenever I'm looking at pricing in terms of metadata, I want to make sure that the pricing is comparable to other such similar books. So is it paperback romance? Is it hardcover nonfiction? What's the page count? Kind of looking at similar titles and saying, okay, they're pricing their paperback at $18.99. I should do something similar. Making sure that it's priced competitively with other similar books, but also, and this is coming from the former bookseller in me, making sure that, and I'm, maybe Leigh can tell me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I like to always make sure discount is regular. And ideally the book is returnable. These are things that booksellers are really going to love and librarians are really going to love. Again, not required, but just really nice to have.
Yeah. So I would just say, coming from a sales perspective, a higher discount is always going to be more preferred, because booksellers are going to give better treatment to a book that they can make more money on. So let's just agree. Yep. So trade secret, if you do a 53% discount, you're still going to get the standard discount for bookstores and booksellers. Yep. So you don't have to do the full 55 to still have a regular discount, but you do have to do at least 53% for that to go through. And then as far as returns, yes, it will increase your reach. It will increase your likelihood of being in a bookstore. Bookstores are not going to order a book that they can't return. They're just not going to take that chance. They need to make money too.
Mm-hmm.
So, that said, you need to make sure that you are financially prepared for returns should they happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't just have to pay back that compensation that you made for the book, you also end up having to pay the print cost for that book as well. All of that is part of the wholesale price. And so, if a book is returned, you're going to end up owing more than what you got for it. Make sure you're in a place where you can withstand that, because you could end up, there's no limit to returns. We can't cap it at a certain amount or anything like that. So it is a risky business, but it can be financially a good thing to do.
Yeah.
If you're ready for it.
Yes, absolutely. And again, just to kind of completely agree with you there, it's really going to help make sure that retailer is able to take on your title to make sure it's returnable. And another thing on pricing is make it global.
Yes.
IngramSpark has global pricing available. Turn that on. It's awesome. And it'll help make sure that your book is available globally. Ingram is building on a global scale, and so the more that we have global pricing turned on, the more you can help grow alongside us and help your title grow alongside us on a global scale.
And if you look at the global retailers that we have, our Global Connect program and everything, there are so many places. We've got over 40,000 retail partners that we are with. And so in order for your book to be eligible to be carried in all of those places, optimize your metadata, global pricing, definitely. And unless you've sold the rights somewhere else, there's really, I don't think, personally, any reason to not put a global price on your book. But get it sold in every market. The goal is to sell books and get your people reading your story.
Yeah.
So do the thing.
Do the thing. And we have a really handy dandy price conversion calculator on the site, on IngramSpark's website. So you can use, let's say, the easy convertible, one-click calculator that says, I'm priced as $18.99 in the US. What will I be priced in the UK? We do all that for you on the back end of our system.
There's the caveat. It's when you first put that price in, it'll convert. Once you change it, sometimes it doesn't do it because there's not a manual button. So worst case scenario, you've already put your price in, it's not converting manually. I like to use a just online currency calculator and round up to the next 95 or 99. That looks more professional than 1801.
True. Very true. Yeah.
Keep an eye. You're not sending your book into the void. Somebody else has probably done something in a similar genre or something. So you want to make sure that your book sticks out in a good way and doesn't stick out in a bad way. So definitely do your research. See what other books in your niche look like, what they're doing, what kind of metadata they're including. And don't copy it, but consider it when you're creating your own.
Yeah, emulate it. Yep, totally. We have a really good question in the chat. Can I answer that? It's how to approach. Yay. Okay, so the question from Inkwell Faith is how do you approach bookshops if you're a self-published author? So, like I said before, I work with self-published authors on the IngramSpark level, and I get this question a lot. So the best thing you can first do is be a patron of that bookstore. Go into that bookstore, talk to the booksellers, talk to the owner, buy a book there. Make sure your book is being published through IngramSpark, because that means it's automatically going to be available to independent booksellers and retailers across the United States and libraries. So make sure you're publishing through IngramSpark. Make sure you're a customer of that bookstore, but also, be really friendly, have a copy of your book, offer to see if you could maybe do an event with that bookstore. But I think just, again, bare minimum and first step is making sure you have a relationship with that bookstore and making sure that you're in the Ingram catalog so that that bookstore can order it for you.
Just remember, if you published your book elsewhere, like a big online place, a bookstore may not be able or want to buy the book from there. They do have great relationships with Ingram. So
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there.
Totally.
So Sarah, quick question. I know we're running short on time. Back to keywords. We had a question from the audience about, are there things that you shouldn't use in regards to keywords?
I mean, again, kind of just like not anything, not anything like fiction, book, author, not anything really vanilla, generic. We really need those keywords to be independent author, independent children's book author, indie author 2024. So again, kind of narrowing it down to time and place, narrowing the book down to what is it about, what are the characters about, what is the atmosphere about, what's the time period and setting. I think that's a really good question, but again, I would just say really avoid very generic feeling keywords that aren't as descriptive.
So that is really great. I'm going to circle back again to, so we talked about how you can update your metadata. It is a living thing. It can be changed. Do you have a recommendation for how often it should be updated?
I think at least once a year, just making sure you do a nice little spring cleaning, look at those keywords, the thema, the bisects.
The pricing.
I think at least on once a year. What'd you say, Leigh?
The pricing.
The pricing.
Inflation is
with inflation.
happening. I'm just saying.
Totally. I mean, do you have a recommendation more often than once a year, Leigh?
I think it just kind of depends on how active the book is. If it's part of your backlist, you can look on that thing once a year, twice a year. But if you just launched it and it's been a month, it's been another month, it's definitely good to keep on top of it and maybe change some things up. I wouldn't do it every day or every week even, but, keep on top of it.
Yeah, that's really smart, especially if it's front list or has just published or about to publish. That's great. Especially if, let's say, you got a really stellar online review or Kirkus review, you can use that and put it into your metadata, into your book's annotation, and that'll really help with online sales and just validity and credibility for the book.
Now, when you say annotation, are you talking about the full description, the short description, or like the quote area?
I'm talking about the full description, but again, please try to fill out all of those things. Have a short description, have a long description or annotation, have quotes if you have them filled out. Again, just good rule of thumb, if there's a blank area in your metadata, try to fill it in.
Yeah. Also, I would just let everybody know that if a book is bought by a bookseller, they're probably using iPage, which is the catalog that we sell all books through. And just so you know, key bit of info that not everybody knows. So good for you being here. The short description is the first thing a bookseller sees before even the long description. And if your short description's not there, they may not pay attention to it. If it's not good, they're probably not going to pay attention to it. So make sure you have a short description.
Wow, Leigh, I didn't know that. That's so helpful.
The things you learn.
Yeah, I learned something today. That's amazing. I mean, I always knew the short description was important, but if it's literally the first thing a bookseller sees on iPage,
the cover and the short description, first thing.
Beautiful. Okay.
I know there were some questions that didn't get answered here. I'm sure that they probably have been answered in other lives. If you want to send us a direct message, that would be cool. We'll get back to you. Can't answer anything or account specific, but final question that I think is really good, I think we should talk about before we head off, is Jerry Silver's asking us, is it true that bookstores will not consider your book if the UPC doesn't contain the price in the code? I'm going to take that to mean the human readable price as well as the price embedded in the barcode itself. And I would just say personally, it's not that they won't necessarily consider it. It's just, it makes it more obvious that it's an indie published book and it is not as professional as it could be. So it's kind of a decision that you get to make if you want to put your price in the barcode or not. You probably should, because it looks more professional that way. But if you think that you're going to be changing your price a lot, and you don't want to commit to one, then don't put it in there. And you can do that later. But ultimately, having a human readable price at least is the way to go. You don't necessarily have to embed it, but you can. We allow that in our cover template generator. Speaking of cover template generator, we've got all kinds of great resources for everybody. There's a metadata checklist, there's a guide, there's a course, there's all kinds of stuff. So if you have specific questions about some of the things we've talked about today, or some things we haven't talked about today, there's so many resources. There's a newsletter that goes out that usually will have a blog post on it that's about metadata right now, because we're all about it.
Yep.
There's all kinds of things. So definitely go look around the IngramSpark website. You'll find all kinds of awesome things there.
Absolutely. Even if you just research or put in the search bar metadata, there are so many articles that you can read to help get you caught up on how to have the best metadata you can, other than this beautiful webinar that we just did.
Yes. So we are well over time. Thank you guys for sticking with us. Thank you for joining us. I know some people popped in and out. We are so glad for anybody who came. If you have questions, again, please send them to us. We will be happy to answer them. And tune in tomorrow, where Sarah's going to educate about TDP and what that can do for your book.
Yeah. Thank you, Leigh. This was great.